to ask you for this project, you have been composing a series of songs on a topic that has not been explored much within Carnatic music. And I was just wondering what interests you about this undertaking and why is this engaging for you? And also, what were the challenges in doing it?
In general terms, there is performance and then there is compositions. And from a musician's point of view, they are on two ends of the spectrum in the sense that when you perform a piece, you know the piece inside and out. You have had time to rehearse. You're basically gleaned it to a point where you understand it very well. You understand the lyric. If it's got lyrics, you understand the whole spectrum of sound, and so it's very well known. On the other hand, composition comes from sort of the void, and the ideal composition is one that has not been explored. So whether it is the idea in music in terms of the lyric or also the underlying emotion of the song. So of course the composer is looking at what has not been done before. It's a big part of why you compose. Otherwise you can just do the standards and get away. So that aspect definitely as a challenge. And when we're talking about composition, then there's the emotion, so it better be felt from your heart. So this was a topic that comes from the heart. So I'm going to wager that it'll make it that much easier to get ideas and kind of frame them in terms of composition. And as for the challenges, I guess the challenge is that in a way there's no precedent as such in at least my genre of music where you exclusively do something that is related to this topic. And that would be the biggest challenge, and it's also the invitation, so to say. That's what's tantalizing about this project.
That's great to hear. And I was also wondering because Carnatic music has often been considered as associated with establishment, right? So I was just wondering, how did you address this tension between sort of conforming with the established musical norms and also introducing this new theme like free living dogs? And yeah, just wondering if what your aim was to gain acceptance within the traditional canon or to create something completely new, or yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Right. Yeah, the established ideas in Carnatic music are great. They go back a very, very long time, and they have stood the test of time. So they're here to stay. But as a composer, the aim is to push the boundaries and of not only what I can do, but also what others can stomach. So it's a two-way boundary, right? It takes two to tango. So this is it's stretching both sides of the aisle. So when you try injecting the new themes, if they come from the heart and if they're relevant in German, in this case, compassion is the general theme, but very specifically towards our much ignored neighbors, which are the liminals, in especially in Indian society. So that is going to be that sort of forward movement of having this new theme. And if you don't do this kind of experimentation, you also don't do justice to the art, and you kind of leave it behind in time. So it's always trying to say, hey, look at the glorious past. It's Indian history and culture and all that. And yes, it's all well taken. Some of it is very romanticized and idealized. At the same time, composers are pushing towards a future where there is equality and so on. There's going to be sort of a level playing field where everybody can enjoy this great art. And so there is the other part of the other side of the coin, which is also quite utopian. So it's a battle of utopias.
Yeah, oh, that's really good. And I was also curious about this, yeah, sort of like if you could expand on these risks and challenges, but also relating to the process of composing this song, and if your personal interactions with street dogs influence these in any way.
Sure. I think it'll be great to talk about this specifically with the example of just the two songs I've just started writing. So I have ways to go before I can actually declare that I have like a completed project and a spread of songs. The first song was kind of like a whimsical, fanciful imagination about my dialogue with one of the streeties in my street. That fellow likes to bark at vehicles, chase bikers, and sometimes even like nip at people. So depending on who the dog does it with, it's either greeted with love or greeted with complete, fear and hate. So I mean, really, the question I'm asking is, why don't you just use a better mode of communication than to bark? That's all you do all the time. So it's sort of like it's also questioning people's, I think, fixation with only one form of communication, which is human communication, language, and almost everything else is shot down as inadequate or impersonal or inhuman. And so there is that whole sort of irony in playing that composition. And then there is the next one, which is more of a classically framed composition, because I'm looking at some of the old sayings or proverbs in my native tongue, which is Tamil. And there's a ton of proverbs which have dogs in them, because in every culture you see dogs are referred in many ways. Some are good, some are not flattering. So I take a couple of them which are flattering, couple of them which are not so flattering, and I basically try and twist them around and just ask people to examine it. So I mean, in terms of interactions, did that influence the composer? I think everybody has interacted with street dogs in India. They're ubiquitous, no matter which community you live in, no matter what your economic status or your social status. So in a sense, we all know a lot about street dogs. Some of us don't even acknowledge it, and the others, like in my case, I'm just lucky that I have this project where I can come face to face with some of the knowledge that I have growing up with dogs. And of course, it is better informed when I interact with people who work on the field with dogs. I'm not a researcher. I'm a composer, and I write, and it's fantasy. But then it's also interesting to see where reality meets fantasy. So that's also the space that I like to explore in this project. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really good. And I was also wondering, with these knowledges that people have, right? If you have, or if you believe that by doing this project, you could also change sort of like the notions, and also, yeah, sort of like sometimes the prejudices that people have surrounding free living dogs.
Yeah, these are age-old prejudices, and they're not going to change in a day. I think, when things like governmental interventions and non-governmental effort, often tries and fails to make a dent. Sometimes we are looking at other ways of entering people's collective psyche, and we just hope, it's basically just trying a bunch of things and hoping something sticks. In this case, because art is art and people get attracted to some other aspect of art, maybe you got to hope. But then, a lot depends on how much focus and concerted effort there is in the kind of right channels, whether it's social channels or media and so on. So when we have a project but it's going to be at least attention grabbing for what really is the underlying issue. So that's really the goal when we discuss the project. This is what we wanted to do. So let's see how well it goes.